What's going on, everyone? This is Tony Mars with the Melted Broadcast, where we dive into the unknown, my melted stories and experiences. This is my new platform that you can use to get your story out to the people. If you or anyone you know has an experience of the paranormal or out of this world, you can email me at themeltedbroadcast@gmail.com. Thank you, and welcome to the show. Welcome to the Melted Broadcast, Infinite Vision. We'll open your eye in a minute. Microphone to the witness. Now pull up a chair, take a listen, listen. Welcome to the Melted Broadcast, Infinite Vision. We'll open your eye in a minute. Microphone to the witness. Now pull up a chair, take a listen, listen. What's going on, everyone? This is Tony Mars with the Melted Broadcast. Today's guest is Lisa, coming from Southwest Houston, Texas. She has 27 years in the medical field in cardiology and neurology, and she's here to tell us her story. So, welcome to the conversation, Lisa.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. So, we're here with season 1, episode 1, the Astral Train station. And you're here to tell us your story. So, why don't we start from the very beginning?
Sure, yeah. So before I get you to the train station, I guess I need to start from the very beginning. When I was 9 years old, I grew up with a single parent. My mom worked 2 jobs, so I pretty much, had range of whatever, at home and coming and going. But I was 9 years old when I experienced some trauma, and after that trauma, some things started happening to me, such as, for example, like whenever I would go to sleep, I remember going to sleep, but still being able to be aware of like sounds out, around me or in the house and stuff like that. But once I fell asleep, I realized that I was able to fly, if that makes any sense. I mean, it's not a kid like with wings flying and stuff. I didn't really know what that was, at the time. Being a kid, you don't really understand, what's happening. I just know that I was excited to go to sleep so that I can try to fly again. And it was something I learned as time went on, because this happened for a long time, off and on throughout my life. But I learned how to get to a point where I would, fall asleep, kind of like in a deep sleep, but still be aware of my surroundings and be able to hear things. But I would focus like on my energy down to my hands, and I was able, while I was sleeping, I was able to kind of just lift in the air like I'm levitating, and I could see myself, my young self sleeping there in the bed, and I would take off, and I always played a game, with myself, thinking, okay, how far can I go? Can I go from this tree to the next tree? And when I realized I could do that, then I challenged myself to see how further I could go. It became from one tree to the next, like say in your backyard, to going from here to a store down the road. And it eventually progressed to where I could just go to a whole nother place.
Okay, so you're talking about the train station. Can you get into more about that?
Yeah, so the train station, it just so happened that my husband at the time, we were moving out of Houston, and we went over to Montgomery, and there's this house that he saw that he liked. It was a new development, the neighborhood was kind of new. It hadn't been around for so many years. But he goes into like driving up, and there's this big old oak tree that's old. We were told it was a couple hundred years old, but he knew immediately that was a house before even like going into that house. And I thought it was kind of like strange, who buys a house like this? You got to go in there and feel it. But That's what he wanted. He was here for a short time because he was in Afghanistan at the time, you know, working over there. So he came down. We went ahead and put an offer on the house, got that house, and he went back to Afghanistan. So first few nights in that house, I was packing, getting the house ready and stuff like that. I didn't really spend much time in the master bedroom until after, I got everything situated and stuff. But I just feel like that house, if I'd have gone in there and felt every room, I probably wouldn't have got that house. Just something about it that I was not comfortable.
It was like whenever you walked in, was there like a heavy energy or something like that?
It's just something in the pit of my stomach that made me feel like I'm not okay with this. But I was trying to do the wife thing and respect that that's what my husband wanted, was this house. The master bedroom, when I went to go and fix that in there, that out of all the rooms in the house, it's like that particular room, it stayed cold like all the time. It didn't matter if it was winter, just and the heat was on, it stayed cold. But it's trauma. I say trauma because I experienced it there, living in that house. And then after I settled in after the first few days, my dog, who was healthy, always seen a vet and everything, I'm not sure what happened to him. He passed away. He got sick. He was sick the next morning. I took him to the vet, and they ran all these tests on him. And, blood work was fine. X-rays were fine. He just couldn't explain why he seized out and passed away, And that was very hard for me because, I from experienced trauma in my past life and throughout my life, it just felt so lonely because my husband wasn't there. He was gone, and so I had to deal with that stuff by myself. But I that happened, and just I couldn't think of why. He says maybe go home, see if he got into some medication, and and it wasn't nothing like that. So I'm not sure what had happened. But after that, I started finally settling into that bedroom. I started to remember the first night after he passed, I was going to sleep, and it was so loud, it was loud. It's hard to explain because if people that don't believe in it will say, "Whoa, she's crazy," right? But for those who do know what I'm talking about, the energy and noise in the room in my head was so loud, and when I would go to sleep, when I try to go to sleep and close my eyes, it was just too much going on. It sounded like a train station. If you've ever been at a train station, all the commotion, the people going on, the trains, the tracks, the wheels hitting the tracks, going by, and you hear it. That's exactly how it was happening for me.
And you could hear this when you were asleep and when you were awake?
Correct. So it was more defined, the noises. They were more recognizable to me when I would go into this sleep. Not, I would have a deep sleep, but I was still aware, of what was going on. So, yeah, I had that. And, I remember, like, if I lay flat on my back, it didn't even matter what side I was sleeping on of the bed, or if I slept on my stomach or on my back. Once I was asleep, everything became alive. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, it became alive while I was asleep. So you had the train on my right side of my body, and then the platform where people were at on the left side. So train on the right, people on my left. And it was weird because it was not the people and the clothing, even the coloring in my dream didn't match to what we see, what we know now, like what we see now. So like their clothes were old-timey clothes. I as far as defining what their faces look like, it was not like your face or my face. I didn't feel like it was evil or anything like that. although when my husband did come home from Afghanistan, he did experience some of that, and I never told him, but he did experience some evil stuff there, and eventually we sold the house because of that. But yeah, it was just people that I know that there were people. I just their faces were, like the eyes where the eyes would have been, like was dark, hollowed.
So they didn't have like real significant facial features that you could they were like distinguishable.
No, they didn't. They really didn't. In the beginning, I was kind of a little freaked out. I started not having good sleep because it would mess with me so much, and after months of this, I just decided to embrace it. But I actually did reach out and kind of yelled at them, because I said, okay, fine. If this is going to be happening, and there's got to be some boundaries. Like, I have to be able to sleep too, and I was losing so much sleep behind it, so that it came to a point where it was just so loud. The train in my ear, the people talking, all the whispering going on, that it got to the point where I just would get so mad and yell at them, like, shut up, and their voices would get lowered. They wouldn't stop talking, and it's not like they were moving their mouths either. It's like I could read their minds, and they could read mine. You know what I'm saying? Like, we weren't communicating like verbally the way you and I are.
Like telepathically?
I mean, if that's what it's called, then yeah, that's exactly how it was for me. But that's always been like that for me ever since I was a little girl, and eventually learned how to astral project. But the clothes, I can still remember the color of it. And what's weird is that the clothing that these people wore, or these entities, whatever you call it, is they were wearing like old-timey clothes, like I would say, like clothes from like the 1800s, but the train didn't look anything like what it was in the 1800s. That train looked a little bit far more advanced than what we see as trains at.
So it was like the past mixed in with like some like advanced civilization, and you're just kind of caught there in the middle,
right,
at that train station.
That's exactly right. That's exactly how I picture it. I feel like that might have been a portal. The train was a passage for those people, and I don't those people they were the same. There was never no new people or nobody ever got on it or got off. I never saw that, in my dreams, or when I was sleeping. I never saw any of that happen. It just was the same people. It was like on repeat, over and over and over after months,
And none of these entities or figures ever try to do like any physical harm to you, or try to I know you said that you were hearing movement all the time, but like none of them like ever came up to you and just started telling you any kind of crazy stuff, or
no,
any messages?
No, none of them did. I never told my family, never told my then husband that, when he would come home from Afghanistan. And the first night that he came home from an R&R, I didn't tell him what I was going through at that house. But, he experienced that. He had like sleep paralysis, and I don't, without getting too much into it because that's his story to tell, I'm just saying what I witnessed there. He had sleep paralysis, and he was trying to scream out, and I remember thinking, like, I felt something uneasy, and when I woke up, he was with his eyes open trying to talk, or actually he was trying to yell and then talk, and it wasn't coming out of him. And when he snapped out of it, he says he didn't feel right. There was something that he was dreaming, that it was an evil spirit telling him to get out. And he showed me his arm, and there was scratches on his arm. Now, I mean, look, I do it, right? When I'm asleep, I scratch my arm sometimes if it itches, but his was a little weird, and I kind of freaked out a bit, and not that I was happy that was happening to him, but the fact that it wasn't like, okay, I'm not crazy, right? I'm experienced this, and then I never told him, and then for him to come home and experience this, And it happened every time he came home for an R&R, you know, until eventually he was just like, you know, I just want to sell the house. And, you know, he don't believe in this kind of stuff, you know. So for him to feel and experience that just kind of confirmed to me that I am going through this stuff, man. This is, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like some crazy mumbo jumbo stuff. Like, I'm dreaming this up, right? Because I'm going through some trauma here, you know. There was a situation with my dad, you know, that he was in a coma for about 26 days because, you know, he had an accident, and I lived in that house when that happened, and I remember spending so much time away from the house because I was practically living at this hospital. And, you know, I was able to sleep there, and when I would sleep, it was the best sleep I had, you know. Even though I was going through something with my dad and didn't know if he was going to make it or not, I was able to have good sleep. You know, I didn't hear things, I didn't see things, I didn't travel, I didn't do none of that. It's just every time that I came back to the house, that was happening. And, you know, I didn't have neighbors next to me. There was literally wooded plots next door, you know. So it's not like there were neighbors out there. I just, you know, but going back to that train station, you know, my father had, you know, eventually he passed away. But I remember that I wanted to be someplace other than here and just kind of escape, you know, because of the sadness and the trauma that I felt from my father dying, you know. So going back home, you know, I had to go back home. There was no more reason for me to be at the hospital sleeping there, you know. I came home and settled back in, and I have it written down, you know. I write everything down because I can remember every dream that I have. You know, I dream in color, I dream in black and white, I dream in everything. But so I always write them down. And I remember this particular night that I went into the train station. I saw my body laying there on the bed. You know, I got into this deep sleep, and not unconscious type of sleep. I just got into this deep sleep, but still aware. And I was able to leave my body. And when I got up out of the bed, you know, I can see myself laying there. I went into this train station that I believe was in my, you know, that was there in my home, in my bedroom specifically. And I remember standing there on that platform, and people stopped. You know, those people that were there stopped and looked at me. And I got into the train, and what's weird is that train never stopped. That train was just consistent going. It never stopped, open doors to let anybody in or out, you know. Like, of all the months that I experienced that, I never once saw that train stop. It was just kept going, you know. So I ended up in that train. And from that train, I'm in another place. It's no longer here, you know. And I remember being in this library, and I was thinking, well, how far can I go? What's my next level, you know? And so I remember climbing. Do you know the libraries? Not the new ones they got now, but like the old ones, the ones that are so tall. I mean, I'm not like
with the ladders.
Yeah, yes, exactly. They have those ladders that you have to climb, and the library is like, when you see it goes up so far. And I remember climbing that ladder, and it's not like it took long to get up there. It's like I got on that ladder and I was just boom, shot up right to the next level, and then the next place was not that library no more. It was a whole nother place, and it was like this building with these doors that were like, it was like the advancement of these doors was something we've never seen here. So, you know, I was able to go through them and, you know, fly up into the next spot. Until I did this that whole time, I did this until I reached a different, you know, I always challenge myself, like, go to the next, how far can you go? How far can you go, right? So I did this until I finally got to this place that was different realms. that I went through to get to this final destination, you know, so to speak. And I remember the floor, the street, you know, those rocks that are like on the streets, they're cobblestones, I guess you would call them cobblestone roads. I remember being there, and I remember thinking, wow, what is this place? It was so immaculate looking that it didn't look nothing like I'd ever seen in real life here on this earth, you know, spotless. You got two men that I see. Again, none of these people that I've seen while traveling, there's no nose, no mouth. Like, I can't describe to you what they look like, other than I knew the two men there, and they were all in white, and they were like street sweepers, and I'm thinking, what are they doing? Like, there's nothing to clean here. It's just so clean. And I see this building off to my right side, and the only way I can describe it is apartments, but not apartment complexes like what you see in Southwest Houston or, you know, any rich neighborhood. It just was a building with doors in it, and it reminded me, okay, this has to be like an apartment complex. Like, who lives here? And I remember seeing this red door that just stood out, and I'm thinking, I want to go through that door because I want to go further and see what's there. Like, where can I get to, you know? And all of a sudden, my father, and keep in mind, he had already passed already, you know, a while back, but my father, who didn't really look like my father, but I knew he was my father, he just looked different, you know, and he was telling me I couldn't be here.
Different, like how? Like he was younger? Or I know a lot of people say whenever they see a family member that's passed in their dream or something like that, it's usually like in a younger form.
No, it wasn't in a younger form. He was still in the same, how I pictured him, how I see him, how I'm seeing him now in that scenario. When I went up there to travel, he was still that age that he was. He wasn't younger or older, but what I mean different is that his features were kind of off. You know, he had like dark under around his eyes. It's not like I could see the whites in his eyes like I could see your eyes, right? You know, I see your pupils, I see your eyes, like I see the color of your skin. I couldn't see no color of skin on him. You know, and he told me that I can't be here. He said, you can't be here. But he didn't tell me in words. We communicated like I knew what he was saying, and I could hear it by his mind, and vice versa. And throughout the whole time, that's how I heard anybody ever communicating, you know, going through this. He said, you can't be here, that I had to go back. And I took that to heart, and I came back through, you know. But I do believe that train station that was there, I've only experienced that train station when I lived in that house. Now, I've since been gone from that house, and I have not had that train station anymore. So, you know, I did a little bit of research, and I know that the lake that I was on, it was man-made lake. You know, it hadn't always been there. And I did research, because I know you had asked me about it, and you did some research, and you found something that was shocked to me.
Yeah, I believe it was like it was separated by like two cemeteries, and just the train station that did used to be there. It's no longer there, but they would transport different kind of criminals through there, and they had like a small prison. So I mean, who knows what kind of bad energy is in that area, especially if they're building neighborhoods over what used to be cemeteries.
Right, and then when you send me that information, and I looked up to the records, the records, it did say that the train station had been built in the 1800s, and that was just recent news to me. I'd never did research on that. I just had so much going on that I didn't bother to do any of that. But that would make sense for me because the people that I saw there had those old timey clothes from back then, from like what I said, like the 1800s, you know. So that kind of freaked me out a bit, knowing that you know that happens. But I don't know, you know, how many times people, you know, companies come in and build houses on top of whatever used to be there. But yeah, I believe that spot was where people hung out. I mean, I don't know what kind of people were back then, like you said, what kind of criminals came through or didn't come through, what kind of crimes they committed. I just know that my experience in that house and that train station was in my bedroom. You know, before moving out, my one of my daughters came over, and she had came over and visit, and you know, she walked through the house. You know, I had a 3-bedroom house. I lived there by myself. My husband, you know, Afghanistan, you know, so she didn't she did not like that bedroom. And my daughter has always had a sense for these things since she was a little girl. She didn't like that bedroom. She says, Mom, you know, you can't have all these mirrors in here. And she would literally take some blankets and cover my mirrors and put these little things on my dresser to protect me overnight, you know. But look, none of that stuff really helped, right? I appreciated that she took care of me like that, and I trust what she says because she, like I said, maybe she'll come on and share her story, but she definitely had a sense for feeling those things and seeing things since she was little. But so I still had that you know, the whole time that I was in that house, you know, we just, my entities or the entities that were there in that train station, we just learned to kind of live together. You know, you understand what I'm saying? When I said, fine, you know, just shut up. And, you know, I did talk to him a few more times and say, look, if we're going to be here, you know, at least let me get some sleep and not keeping me up all night with all this commotion going on through this bedroom. And I mean, there had to be some boundaries. And so, you know, we just coexisted together, you know, that's how it was the whole time I lived in this. You know, I lived in this house probably about a year, and then we were done. It was over and done with. My then husband didn't want to have anything to do with being there, and like I said, he wasn't the type to believe in that stuff. I never told him my experiences, but he, you know, he did go through some stuff there in that house, in that bedroom.
So it definitely sounds like you're a traveler. I'm just kind of putting it together. Maybe the train station was some sort of wormhole that whenever you went to sleep, you know, you actually projected and went through this wormhole. You know, you made it to this library. A lot of the people know about it's called the Akashic Records, and that's where all the past, future events, knowledge, in everything that's has been, will be, and is right now. And maybe you were right there at the Akashic Records, and then from there you transported into another realm where you saw your father.
Yeah, I never, you know, I've never heard of that library that you're talking about. But like I said, this library was nothing like going to a public library. This is, I can, you know, I can still see everything, every color, every detail. This was a library I've never seen. I don't think any of us, like, here on this earth have seen. And it just went on and on and on, like, so, like, you to the point where you couldn't even see the top, like where it ended, you know. So I've never heard that before. So that's interesting. I'll probably look into that. But man, that's exciting to think that I was there. And how did I not know that? So that I can try to go and read through some of that.
Yeah, you should have pulled a book and opened it up.
That's I should have,
Yeah.
but I had no idea. You know, I was after something, you know, and you know, I was trying to get to some place. You know, you know, I was told not to do this again. You know, I did talk to somebody about it, and I was told, you know, not to do this again because this is a person who's a very firm believer and has done a lot of extensive research on it, and says, listen, as a friend, I'm telling you not to do this again, because if you can't control something over there, you're going to stay there and your body here will die, you know. So I listened, you know, I haven't done it since, but I'm not going to lie, you know, thinking about it, there are times when I want to, and I don't sleep well at night because I think about, like, could I do that? I even seen a doctor about this one time, and I told her, she's like, what's going on? And I was explaining to her, and I can kind of tell she wasn't, hey, I'm gonna get called on, they're gonna call a bus on me or something. But I said, listen, I can't, I have to be able to sleep, right? I invite, like, it's not that I invite, it's just I function better with the chaos around me. And it's kind of like I missed that, I coexisted with these entities and the train in my ear for a year, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, it's all I had when I lived there at the house. There was nobody that lived there with me. My ex-husband, at the time, my husband at the time was in Afghanistan. I didn't feel like I fit in with anybody in this area. So they were like I expected them to be there when I got ready to go into that room, You get to a point when you expect that. So she told me, what she told me? To find a hobby. And so what I did was, I said, okay, no problem. I went and decided to buy some canvases, paintbrushes, and everything that I had in my mind, the people that I seen, the flying, whatever, all that, I just started putting it all in canvases. So for a whole year, I painted one canvas for sure. There were times when I painted 2 or 3 canvases, and a lot of that stuff was dark. And even my oldest daughter would say, wow, Mom, like this is dark, And I said, yeah, but everything that's inside of me, I have to be able to get this out, And at the time, I didn't know anything about podcasts that had platforms like this for people like us to come and share our experience with and talk to somebody about it. You have this stigma that people, you say this out loud to somebody, and the first thing they're going to think about, she's crazy. And they want to put you on medications, and that's not so. Like, this stuff does exist. It does happen. Whether you believe in this or not, it is there. You know what I'm saying? It's just who has an open mind to believe in this. But yeah, she would say, man, my stuff was so dark, and she's really good about interpreting art, but she would say, Mom, like, there's so many men, like faces of men and monsters and stuff in your paintings. And these were a lot of the earlier paintings that I did, and some of those I still have,
And we're definitely gonna post some pictures of some of her paintings on the X, because if you guys don't know, this lady does some amazing artwork, some really amazing artwork.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think for that part, I got to give props to my doctor, right? Because she's the one that said find a hobby, and then that's what I decided to do, was to paint. I heard that, I believe that, whatever's inside of you, rather, good or bad or evil or whatnot, and you put it on that canvas, it stays on that canvas, and it comes out of you, But yeah, that's how that is. But
all right, well, it was great having you on the show, Lisa. And, just for everybody out there, just know that, you're not alone. This is a platform for you guys, that you could come on and tell your story. Like she said, there's that stigma, but it doesn't have to be like that. You can reach out to us at the meltedbroadcast@gmail.com. You can message us on the X. I definitely will respond. And we just appreciate you guys being part of the conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I'm sure a lot of us that have this, that experience this, will appreciate platforms such as yourself, so that we're allowed to come in here and tell our stories and not be judged, by anybody. It's just a conversation that we're having, and you're letting me share my conversation with your audience. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here, Lisa.
Well, there it is, everybody. Lisa, thank you for coming on the show. And from everybody from the Melted Broadcast, welcome to the conversation, and stay melted. Infinite vision will open your eye in a minute. Microphone to the witness. Now pull up a chair, take a listen, listen. Welcome to the Melted Broadcast. Infinite vision will open your eye in a minute. Microphone to the witness. Now pull up a chair, take a listen, listen.